Oi, oi, all right, how's it going? I'm Grant, you're you. This is the Doodle Review coming through with a new episode of Needle Exchange. This is the series in which I unpack, go through a number of my recent kind of vinyl finds, vinyl purchases. In this case, we're in that post holiday, post Christmas, post festive season lull. I'm going through the gifts that I was lucky enough to receive from family and friends. Everyone that knows me knows how much I'm basically addicted to buying vinyl. So it becomes pretty much the go-to gift for from all of my loved ones, of which I'm extremely grateful. And this year I got some bangers, so I thought I would share them with you. All right, so let's get into it. First up, we have this Quincy Jones, the dude. This is Quincy Jones. I believe it's his first ever solo album, solo recording. I was doing a bit of a Wikipediaing on this when I got it. I believe it's just before producing Thriller for Michael Jackson. I think as I was reading it about this, it was kind of like, obviously Quincy Jones, the man, has been for a long time, or was for a long time. At this point in his career, he was kind of desperate to earn some recognition beyond maybe those just in the know as kind of the guy behind the scenes. He wanted to kind of be the dude. The dude. I did that even unintentionally. This is a classic present from my mum. Always goes off piste, but always nails it. Not kind of Quincy Jones, obviously massively on my radar. Don't have any of his in the collection, so this is like a real nice surprise to get. Let's whack it on, see what it's like. So it comes, as you can see, on this really cool yellow edition. I believe this is a 2016 repress. My mum was saying when she gave this to me that obviously Quincy Jones sadly passed away. She'd seen it online, and after he died, it was like slowly going up in value. So she snapped it up for me, which is awesome. So yeah, let's back it on. All right, all right, all right. Had to I was still in the post-Christmas lull, so I had to go and fix myself a Bloody Mary, because what better way is there to start any day, especially one like this? This is a cracking album. It starts with an absolute banger, Aina Corrida, who I'm sure it sounds so familiar, and maybe it's just because it kind of charted at the time and it's remained maybe a bit of a throwback tune, but I'm sure it's been sampled somewhere. I was looking it up. I couldn't see an exact like immediate obvious place where I would have been like, oh yeah. But when you hear it, if you listen to it, I'm going to create a playlist of all of this stuff. It will hopefully sound familiar. But yeah, banging tune. It's a cover. A lot of these songs are covers. Obviously, Jones would have had just a great ear for songs that he felt he could bring something to, and has obviously assembled a huge cast of characters to bring them to life. You've got incredible session musicians that he would have used time and again on his productions with other people. But you've got people like Stevie Wonder. Patty Austin is an artist that I think he was trying to sort of introduce to the world through this album. She takes the lead on a number of tracks. Love this. So good to have it in the collection. Really want to go deeper on Quincy Jones's production. I know there's a great documentary out there at the moment, so I'm gonna have to track that down at some point. But yeah, Quincy Jones, the dude, banging. On to the next one, and we have Miles Davis and Jack Johnson. So again, this is another amazing pull from my mum here. I didn't even know this album existed. I'm beginning to Miles Davis. Haven't begun to scratch the surface in terms of like collecting his stuff on vinyl. I've got a couple of the ones that you would know, like Kind of Blue, Around Midnight, those sorts of ones. This is a soundtrack that he did for a film, I believe, dedicated to the boxer Jack Johnson, who Davis really admired for being such a kind of like, he was a successful boxer, but also like lived a very lavish lifestyle in a time where, as a black man, that would have been quite a challenging thing to do. And I think, Davis being quite the outspoken person in terms of like racial inequalities, injustices, obviously that just massively appealed to him. So I believe he kind of jumped at the chance to create the soundtrack. Let's give it a whirl. So this is one that was just so much fun to sit down and listen to. We actually listened to it straight out the bus after I unwrapped it on Christmas Day. It's a really cool album that I'd not known that Miles Davis had done this. It's actually, having looked into it, kind of heralded as one of the best examples of Davis during his kind of like jazz fusion era. And you can certainly hear that. These are tracks that bring together not just Davis, but we have you got Herbie Hancock on the organ, um, and you've got John McLaughlin on electric guitar, Michael Henderson on bass, who is a big standout for me on this record. Like his bass lines are so smooth, so cool. And Billy Cobham on drums. We also have Steve Grossman on soprano sax, as well as obviously Davis. Really cool collection. It's just two songs, so these were basically used as score, from what I gather, on a film dedicated to the life of Jack Johnson. And on the back, I was just reading it there is a great piece written by Miles Davis on this, and yeah, it really kind of just speaks to not just what an amazing life Jack Johnson had as a boxer, obviously just completely fearless in the way that he wanted to live his life under such, oppression is the best word for it in the US, living in the way that he wanted to, which was, loud, brash, celebrating his success, driving fast cars, drinking champagne. He was married to white women, which would have been, massively scrutinized. So yeah, he was completely fearless, and it's obviously no wonder that Davis really idolized this man, because he himself took that and did that in his own way. This is really cool. If you're into jazz, if you're into Miles Davis, I'm sure maybe you know about this, but if you don't, would 100% recommend getting on this. Really cool record. Okay, up next, on a similar sort of vibe, this one was a bit of a self gift, because why not? I would have, might have seen me talk about this in my wrap up of kind of top 10 honorable jazz mentions. This is Ty Segall's recent album Love Rudiments. I found it on Amazon for a tenner. I had the intention of buying it anyway, but when you see something at that price, you got to do it. So yeah, let's whack it on. So yes, Love Rudiments. Just putting it on there reminded me why I really like this. It is an album that is completely instrumental, completely driven by the drums, and more percussive instruments. So he uses xylophones, glockenspiels, timpanis, things like that can conduct a melody, but does so in more of a percussive way. Apparently, Ty Segall's first kind of instrument was drums, so that this is kind of him going back to his first love, as it were. But yeah, it charts the journey of love, I guess, and relationships through this very abstract record. I don't know what it is about this. I just find it so listenable, super engaging, but calming in the way that ambient and experimental music is, and fucking great drums. So yeah, highly recommend this one. See what's next. And what's next is Hot Water Music and Vowels. Again, another one. This was up on my honorable mentions list. Rock music. I found, but reviewing this album, I found there's some real high points. There's also some ones that I feel aren't as great for me, maybe a little too earnest. But Hot Water Music are an incredible band, and I'm always keen to have them in the collection. And yeah, there are a number of tracks that I really enjoy. So let's get this one. Just putting that on just then just reminds me like how big is Chuck Reagan's voice, man. Like, it's so bellowy and gravelly. I think it just like, it sounds so powerful at points, to the point where on record sometimes I think it becomes maybe a bit of a parody of itself. Like, as he's getting older, it becomes so, the vibrato is getting so strong. I always often say it reminds me a little bit of like Bruce Dickinson, Iron Maiden, which is such a stupid comparison because the bands couldn't be any different, and I'm sure that's not the intention. But it's just that like vibrato is getting almost operatic, which is crazy to think when you think of the type of music that this is. But it's so great, but seeing them live is a different beast altogether. Like live, things are a little bit more cut up and a bit more raw, and it makes more sense with the context of everything. But the band sound amazing. I'm again loving the implementation of Chris Cresswell into this group. Flatliners are one of my favorite kind of modern punk metalcore, post-hardcore bands, whatever you want to label them. And it must be a dream come true for him to be in this band. And he sounds fucking great. And I love me some Chris Cresswell. So it's so good to hear him also take lead on some songs, but also duet with Chuck Reagan as well. And also got this on as you might have seen, on the leaf green variant as well, which is sick. So next, which is Pixies, Night the Zombies Came. I have to admit, I was a little bit disappointed in this when it first came out. I feel like the performances feel very apathetic and like no one really wants to be there, except, of course, Emma Richardson, who is the new person on the bass. But I'm a huge Pixies fan, so I'm a completist. So it had to go on the list. I had to get it, and I'm glad that I do. And, when I take my kind of critical hat off, a few of these songs here I do really enjoy. I think in particular Johnny Goodman is a bit of a banger, and You're So Impatient as well. Like they're kind of classic Pixies tunes. Let's whack it on. Let's get a closer look at this one. Yeah, so Pixies, Night the Zombies Came. I think, it's Pixies by the numbers. There's some problems with it, but I'm sure I mentioned this in the review. I think, Pixies on a bad day is still better than most. Like Frank Black is an amazing songwriter, and he's a real workhorse, right? Like I think he can just churn out songs. If you give him a subject matter and like a couple of chords or whatever, he'll pick something out, and it will be, if not, a classic, it will sound unique like the Pixies. Only the Pixies can do. So to say that this isn't as good or this is disappointing is really just to sort of say that, they've done such great work over the years, such classic work, that it just doesn't meet that bar. But, that's still, still striving for that is still amazing. So yeah, I'm glad I've got this one in the set. And I actually really wasn't too convinced on the album artwork for this, and it doesn't, maybe when it doesn't sit right, but I kind of like this die cut sleeve with the label, and how it contrasts with the color of the front cover. Yeah, it's cool, and maybe this one will win me over more in time. But yeah, glad I got it in the set. It's definitely on my list. Next up, a classic that I'm not entirely sure why I haven't had in the collection. When I was asked by my dad, like, what do you want? I hate giving people like, oh, buy me this, because at the end of the day, I'm like well into my adulthood now. I don't need Christmas gifts. It's a nice to have, but if someone say they don't want to, buy gifts, I totally get it. And I feel really weird asking people for specific things. But if someone asks me for something, what I'll try and do, like I did to Dad, is to give him. I'll be like, oh, you wouldn't believe it, but I don't have any Oasis in my collection, so that's a good kind of thing. And he pulled it out of the bag with what could be my favorite Oasis record. So yeah, let's bang it on. How good, man. How good are Oasis? How good. I'm stoked to have this in the collection finally. What a perfect debut. I think this is the 20th anniversary remaster. So the one that came out in 2014. I can show you, it's like the gatefold version here. So you got some great shots of Liam, the band. No liner notes, but that's okay. I'm just really glad to have this on gatefold. And yeah, banging songs. I've been thinking a lot about Oasis recently because I've been in the background refamiliarizing myself with the albums that I hadn't kind of gotten into as much, and in preparation for hopefully doing an album ranking video at some point. And yeah, man, the one thing that I you always sort of take for granted, or goes maybe unsaid, is that what made Oasis stand out is not necessarily their sound or whatever. You know, there's so many arguments about what they were derivative of, or what have you. But where they were unique is they're so fucking positive. Like every song is upbeat, and I mean, sometimes it's slightly aggressive, and it might be positive from a point of view of like self-belief, and that like, I don't care what you say, I'm gonna do this. But that's still a you know a lens of positivity. And then the rest of them are like, you know, let's all love each other, I love you, she is love, we'll live forever. Like everything is positive, is so upbeat, and yet not in any way lame or twee. Yeah, it's just fun, upbeat, great rock music. Don't know if they ever got better than this. You have to wait for my album ranking to see. But yeah, so glad I've got it in the mix finally, in the collection. The next one on the list, or the next one in the collection, is Similar Vibe. Never mind. Obviously a little censoring of the cover there to make sure that we don't fall on the wrong side of YouTube guidelines. But yeah, a classic that I didn't have in the collection. Same guidance basically. It's like, oh, Dad, by the way, I don't have anything by Oasis, and I don't actually have anything by Nirvana, believe it or not. So either in those categories would be greatly appreciated. And yeah, I didn't expect it. You got one from both, and you know, obviously this is the obvious choice. This is the go-to, the very publicly lauded classic album, but it is that for a reason. I think, you know, Bleach is an amazing debut. In Utero is a fucking awesome punk album, but this is, you know, a classic rock album. Let's get on. Well, what can you say? Absolute belter, isn't it? I don't think I've actually done any Nirvana content on the channel, but I feel like it almost doesn't need to be said. They're an amazing band, one of the best. I had that teenage, you know, come to Jesus moment with this album, like many people did. I don't know if it still happens, if it's still a touchstone in the way that it was when I was growing up. Must have listened to it millions of times. Incredibly produced. I actually don't think there's anything about this album that's gone unsaid, or anything about Kurt Cobain or his writing that's gone unsaid. It's just they're one of those bands that they're spoken about too often for there to be any kind of new, you know, new territory to cover. But one particular aspect that I do like to kind of hone in on when I'm listening and, you know, think about or talk about is the guitar solos. As a lead guitarist, I don't know if anything about this band is underrated, but certainly one of the lesser things that are spoken about is Cobain's approach to lead guitar playing. He's not a virtuoso and not a shredder and not technically the most proficient, but he knows when to double the lead vocal because it's a strong enough melody, or when to go off piste or kind of embellish things. And in Bloom, which was what I was just listening to, just in that case, I love, and this will be more of a Butch Vig thing, but I just love the effects on that particular solo. It's got this like flanged chorus effect to it, but also really distinct and cutting distortion. Just one of the many aspects that make the band and also this album incredible. I'm so glad I finally got it in the mix, in the collection. Had to be done. Yeah, I know it's an obvious. I'm just noticing this one is sealed in a really annoying way. It's got a label up the side of it. I'm not precious about I'm not precious about vinyl and records in any way, in the sense that I'm not a collector. I'm not out here trying to get every repress, every variant, or trying not to open or not to play stuff. Like I get vinyl because I love having big chunky artwork. I love owning the music in case anything ever happens, you know, Spotify falls off the earth or what, someone tries to pull an album. I love having it. And that's kind of it. You know, you can wax lyrical for ages about the sound or the tone of vinyl or whatever. And yeah, I do love that. I love the active role you have to play in listening to music on vinyl, but sure as shit not the most convenient. I'm not out here saying it is. So yeah, that this tangent just comes from the fact that like they've put a sealed label down the side. So the only thing I'm going to do is rip that. And as much as I'm not precious about vinyl, I don't want to like have to be actively fucking it up. But also listening to the music is way more interesting to me. So let's Dick, absolutely stoked having this in the collection. I love this record. I think it's an amazing pop album that's challenging but also catchy as hell. I do wonder the longevity of it. Like right now, there's a real element where this throwback Y2K club pop sound pushed through a more postmodern hyperpop tone just hits. You know, it's 2024, bang on, right time, right place. In 10 years time, will it be like, oh yeah, like, will it be that sounds so of wow, that sounds so of the time, or will it be one of those sounds albums that sounds timeless? I think that's quite hard to discern compared to other albums that come out that are instant classics. Sometimes they come out, they're instant classics, you're like, wow, this is always going to sound timeless. It's timeless sound that makes it a classic. This, I think the jury's out a little bit, but I mean, I'm a big big believer in this album. I love it. I love it. All right. Next up, as you can see, I was I was really lucky this year. Um, Another album of a band that I really should have had in the collection a long time ago, but haven't. This is the very first Shellac album, and I was really only introduced to this year. Not the band. I'd been listening to the band for a while on and off, but I did a interview with Charli of PREDECEASED right like early April time, and it was our band in 3 albums, and he shouted this one out. Shouted Shellac at Action Park as like one of those influential records. And I listened to it around that time and I was like, yeah, of course it is. It's amazing. Sadly, sadly we lost Steve Albini this year. Let's put this on and come back to it. Man, what a band. What a band. I was just listening to Il Porno Star off this record and I hadn't noticed before how it sounds like the tape or the recording is being manipulated to kind of make that rhythm, that do 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 do. Maybe I've got a dodgy copy, but no, I think this band just sounds so fucking good. I realize I'm doing a terrible job of actually discussing the vinyl. I'm just talking about the music. But yeah, this comes in like a gatefold sleeve that has all of these credentials of being like, sustainable packaging. Famously, it comes with this like massive doodle on the front, but also the instructions for providing resuscitation to someone on the back after death by electric shock. The sound is like nothing really else at the time. Certainly other bands have tried to take that on, but Steve Albini was a true one of a kind. And yeah, I'm just glad he made records. He performed music as much as he made records, because undoubtedly an amazing producer that's given us some great bands and great albums. But it was really cool to also hear his aesthetic, his taste, his approach applied to music of his own creation, of course with other great band members as well. But yeah, band that I love. So glad to have this first record. They also put out an amazing record this year as well, which sadly looks like it'll be their last. Yeah, I told you I was really lucky this year. Like we're getting close to the end, but we aren't there yet. Okay, so next up, another album that was in my top 10. Very apt to be after Shellac because while not directly related or sounding like them, certainly just from talking to Christian Lembach, lead frontman, songwriter of Whores, I know that Shellac would definitely be a band that certainly had some influence on him just from what we were talking about, and and his reverence for Jesus Lizard. So yeah, this is a great record. I'm going to put it on. So this year we were absolutely spoiled, or this year, it's 2025 as I record this. So last year we were absolutely spoiled for noise rock, and you had Shellac, Jesus Lizard, Pissed Jeans, Mets, but also Whores. And I was incredibly stoked to hear this band come back with an album because I really like Gold, which was like 8 years ago. This one kind of just popped up out of nowhere. I assumed the band had maybe just kind of, decided to do other things or whatever. But they dropped this War, and I would say it kind of does everything that the first album does for you, but just in a bigger way, and does so in a really rare instance of actually being a bit more conventional. The riffs here, some of them are like quite straight up. If they were performed by any other band that wasn't so kind of sadistic sounding, you could make a case that certain riffs in certain songs could be, considered almost radio friendly. They're not, don't get me wrong, the way they're presented here, but like it's, there's hooks is what I'm saying. There's hooks, and it's but it just hits you like a sledgehammer, man. So good. So glad to have this one. I've got this. I think this is in the Galaxy Blue variant. Let's see what's next. Okay, so we're on now to some self-gifting. I think we've covered pretty much everything that I got given. Very, very lucky man. Very, very lucky man. But there's a couple things that I went out and got myself in the post-Christmas kind of couple of days, in that like Crimbo Limbo, as they call it. We went out to London. Very lucky that we've got a Third Man Records in London. I will say that, as someone that buys a lot of vinyl, I'm always, the only way I can sort of sustain it in any way is to constantly be looking out for deals. Like I try not to buy anything over 20 quid. Otherwise I'm just going to bankrupt myself, especially at the amount that I get. So yeah, Third Man, as much as a cool shop, is great just for the, the fact that it exists. I try and go in there. I try and pick up like their Maggot Brain magazine every 3 months, just so I'm kind of like making sure I'm supporting. But yeah, from a record perspective, you'll be hard pressed to find anything at like a bargain price. Everything is at that kind of, which is fine, the standard like 25 quid, 30 quid or above, in the exchange rate terms. If you're a US viewer, that would be like what? 25 quid would be like $35. Anyway, tangent. This then is one of the things that you can get at the Third Man store, which are their live at Third Man releases, which they always do at a pretty decent price. So I picked up this, which is Alex G, or Sandy Alex G as he was going by then, for like £13. Just a no-brainer. So I picked it up. Let's put it on. Sweet. So Alex G, I think this, from the sound of it, this was recorded around the time of Rocket's release, which I think might still be my favorite album of his. This has reminded me though that I do need to go back and revisit House of Sugar, and the name escapes me of what his follow-up to that one was, which I think I liked better than House of Sugar. But I mean, I love Alex G as an artist. I think he's a very interesting, has an interesting take on folk in a, very modern way. Sometimes it's a little bit crazy, and then sometimes it's very straight up conventional. I love the whole Third Man Records thing, the fact that it's a store, the fact that Jack White is signing bands, that he's repressing stuff, the fact that he's recording stuff in store. How cool. I mean, he's basically doing what I feel like is just the dream. And obviously to cap that off, he's just a fucking amazing musician to boot. But yeah, I think if I had like an infinite amount of money, I would really attempt to do the same thing, because wow, what a rewarding thing to be in charge of. And I bet it makes some money as well. Last one, another self gift. I found this for a great price. It's Marissa Paternoster, aka the front woman of the Screaming Females. She released a solo album a couple years back, and I managed to find this for a really decent price. So yeah, let's whack it on. But yeah, this album is a great acoustic folk leaning record, and hopefully that's maybe where Marissa Paternoster will go now that Screaming Females is done. I really hope she doesn't stop making music, because she's great. She's got a real gift. Would really recommend you checking this out. If also, I feel like it might have gone under the radar. If even if you like Screaming Females, you might not know that this came out a couple of years ago now. So yeah, give it a look. And that about wraps it up. This has been a long episode. I feel very, very lucky. Most of these were gifted to me by friends and families over the holidays. If you celebrated, I hope you had a great one. I hope you're having a good new year. I'm going to make a playlist with one song from each of these, so you can get a flavor for any of the ones that you aren't familiar with. And I'll link that below. I'll link some of the reviews for albums of the artists that I've got here. And yeah, let me know, like, what did you get? What have you got recently? What are you into? What are your latest vinyl finds? Would you like to see more of these episodes? Give me a shout. Let me know in the comments. And yeah, if this is your first video of mine and it makes you want to watch more, then obviously subscribe. I've got loads of content. So yeah, all right, take care. Cheers. My Nago. Bye.